All right, howdy guys. Today's LeetCode question is number 832, flipping an image. Given an n by n binary matrix image, flip the image horizontally, then invert it, and return the resulting image. To flip an image horizontally means that each row of the image is reversed. For example, flipping 110 horizontally results in 011. To invert an image means that each 0 is replaced by 1 and each 1 is replaced by 0. For example, inverting 011 results in 100. And then we can see the examples here, a bunch of 1s and 0s. So the output's 100. And then the explanation first, the reverse each row, so 011. So in the original it's 110, now it's 011. Then invert the image. So by inverting, we're pretty much replacing any 0 with 1 and then any 1 with 0. So as we can see with this first one here, we have a 1 since it's 0, and then 2 1s, so now we have 2 zeros. All right, so when you look at it at first, it could be a little scary because there's a whole bunch of 1s and 0s, but they pretty much tell you how to do it. And here's my interpretation of how to do this. So let's go ahead and we're going to first make a variable to store our result into. So we're going to make a jagged array here. And so for the first box here, we're going to do image.length. So if you're newer to programming, whatever this is, whatever this first image is, this is like the amount of rows that's going to be within the array. So we want to have the same amount of rows as image. And so in order to use this variable here, in order to store things in this variable, we first have to initialize this the columns section, or this next bracket. So in order to do that, we're going to do a for loop. So we're going to do for I equals 0, I is less than result dot length. So we're pretty much checking as long as I is less than the amount of rows that are within this variable. We're going to go ahead and continue, and then what we do is we do result I. So whatever row we're on, we want it to equal a new int array, and we want this int array to be the same length as image I dot length. All right. So yeah, if we don't do this, then we end up getting an error here. It'll say null reference object, because the rows for the array are created, but the columns aren't. So it'll just, like, even if you look at, here, let's go into Visual Studio real quick. I'll show you. So here we are in Visual Studio. So we have the row initialized here. And so if we go to result, we have null. So as you can see here, we have result. We have int 3, so we have 3 rows here. But if you look at the individual entries in the row, like in the specified columns, we have null. So we can't really do anything if it's set to null, so we have to set these to 0. So oops. So that's why going ahead and making a new integer for every row. So since this is telling the length, all the entries are going to be 0 instead of null, and so that's what we want. So next, what we have to do is we have to do int. We'll make another for loop. So int I equals 0. So for this time, we're going to do I less than image dot length. So this could be either or. This could be either image or result, since it's the same length. But for consistency's sake, since we're interacting with the image variable, we're going to go ahead and name this image dot length. So we're going to do I++. Now for this one, what we're going to do is we're going to use the array class. Within the array class, there's going to be a function called reverse. And this makes our lives so much easier. We don't have to actually go through individual entries within the image array, and we don't have to like reverse it by hand. This will just reverse it for us. And all we have to do here is just pass in our the row that we want to reverse, and then that should give us this should give us this input here. So so instead of 110, we're going to get 011. All right, so the next step is we have to compare the image, the reversed image, to get the result. So we have to pretty much invert it from here. So this is pretty much the last step. So in order to do this, what we have to do is we have to do a nested for loop here. So for int I equals 0, I is less than image.length. We'll do result actually, just to stay consistent. We could do either or, it doesn't matter. But for consistency's sake, let's just do result length because we're going to be interacting with the result variable. So int I, okay, so since it's a nested for loop, we have to change up the integer here. So int k equals 0. I think people usually use j, but it is what it is. We can name this whatever we want. So what we're doing here is we're doing so we're whatever the length of this row is of results I, we want the length of that. So we're gonna first we're selecting the row, and then now we're going through like each individual column on the row. And so what we can do here is, all right, we could be fancy here and do use XOR. So for you guys don't know, we can use XOR, but we're gonna keep it simple here. So all we're gonna do is we're just gonna go ahead and just do an if statement, simple if statement. So if result I and the result k equals 0, we're going to go ahead and we're going to have results. Oh, I'm sorry. We want image. That's my mistake. So we're checking the image because result has nothing in it. So we're checking the image since it's reversed. So we want image, or we want result ik to equal 1. So the reason why we're equaling this to 1 is because of this part right here. So to invert an image means that each 0 is replaced by 1, and then each 1 is replaced by 0. So if it's a 0, it's a 1. And then we want to do an else statement here because it's either or. It's because the entry is either going to be a 0 or a 1. And if it's not a 0, then the only other possibility is a 1. So then we're just going to do I, k, and then we're going to equal this to 0. And then we gotta make sure we're outside of our for loop, and then we're gonna return results. Oops. And then that should be it. Let's go ahead and hit run. All right, and then everything's accepted. So yeah, let's go ahead and submit this on in. So this is my this is what I came up with the solution here. It's definitely not the fastest, but it gets the job done. And sometimes that's all you need. So as for time complexity, this is time complexity of O and n squared. The reason why it's O of n squared is because of this nested for loop here. So pretty much n represents the variable that we're passing into the function. And so since we're using this, we're iterating through this function essentially twice, we're pretty much squaring the amount of time complexity. And yeah, hopefully you guys found this helpful, and yeah, hope you have an awesome day. Adios.